Hello and welcome to everyone who's tuning in to this session in the ISTQB Women in Testing series of interviews with remarkable women from our industry. I am very happy to have with me today Clara Ramos Gonzalez. Hello, Clara.
Hello everybody, and welcome to this session.
Clara, you're in Spain, I think, but not originally from Spain?
No, I'm Argentinian, and I always have my mate, which is that typical beverage from Argentina. It's kind of a cup of tea, but it's so typical from Argentina. And this gives me away all the time. When they think I'm Spanish, they see this and you're Argentinian.
Wrong. Clara, let's start by finding out a little bit about you, your background, and how did you come into IT, and particularly testing, and also maybe share with us what you're doing at the moment.
Yes, of course. My beginning in the IT world was a little bit funny because I was playing an online game. I was actually playing Counter-Strike with some of friends from my city, but we didn't know each other. And we were talking in English, and we were doing some comments about the function of the game, the usability. And I was saying that this is so hard to find, why they do it like this. And one of the guys told me, I'm a developer and this is very hard to do. And I was, that's so interesting. And then we became friends, and they had an opening in the company they were working, and it was an opening for a QA. And they told me if they could refer me, and I was so happy, so interested, because we were going to be able to work with games, with technology in English, which is not my mother tongue. So I told them yes, and after a few interviews, I started my first work opportunity as a junior QA for a safety and insurance company from the United States. So it was so exciting, and then I felt such a passion for exploring the IT world and the QA role in particular that got my attention. It was like using my personality. I'm so detailed. I'm such a good explorer. I love communication, reporting, learning in my work. So it was like, this is for me, believe me. And I started studying a lot about that. I was actually studying nutritionist by the time, and I left it and I joined the informatics and technology course. Yeah.
So a university course?
Yes, I did the career and also a lot of different trainings, because for QA in particular, which is a very specific part of the IT and the development world, we needed particular training. And that is not in the university, not then, not now. So luckily we have ISTQB to certify us and to learn a lot of things. But back then it was just that training course and training material, and it was not a complete full career.
So that was your first job, and we'll look at your journey in between. But what are you doing now?
Now I'm a conference speaker. I speak about quality strategies, quality management. I advocate for the different parts of quality, the integrity and the overall of quality. And I also have some workshops that I provide for companies. One is about women in testing, women in tech. It's about inclusion and about gender, and I name it when quality meets equality. So we are able to open the doors that sometimes seems to be a little bit closer for us. So I'm doing workshops, conference speaking, and I'm a QA coach and mentor in different platforms.
While you're doing your workshops, I can imagine that there's a lot of discussion about the different challenges and obstacles plus opportunities that women face. And what are the key themes that come out during those discussions?
We speak a lot of different things, like technical backgrounds and about the imposter syndrome, which is very, very important for us. Women in tech, we tend to be more into imposter syndrome, even though we have the skills, we have the capacity, we have the results that are showing that that's due to our capacity. We tend to think it's lack, or we tend to think that somehow someone in the future is going to uncover and discover that we are not as good as we seem to be. and the self-doubt. So we talk a lot about that. I'm also a yoga teacher, so I have been 15 years in IT and 10 years into yoga and meditation, and I like to blend both and try to bring a lot of awareness into the IT world, so we can create the opportunities also for ourselves, because sometimes just believing that we don't have the capacity is the actual door closed. So sometimes we need to address ourselves and our self-doubt, and then go to the outward and reclaim our opportunities.
It's one of those things that just sounds easier said than done. Reclaim our self-doubt. Can you share some, top-level tactics that women might use to help support them in doing that?
Yes, of course. What I tend to encourage women is to explore our communication skills. We are by nature great listeners and assertive communicators. So we need to be able to raise our voices in the metaphorical way, because I have had team members that actually raise their voices. That's not a good practice. So in a metaphorical way. And how can we do that? How can we be set aside from self-doubt into self-confidence? We need to start thinking about ourselves. We need to start changing the way we think about our qualities, our characteristics, our skills, and we need to embrace the truth that we are capable. And this is something that comes from inside us. So what I do is I create an open space for communication, and they are required to raise their voices, to raise their hands, to make an opinion, even on subjects that we don't know about it. What do you think about this thing that you have never listened before? And that gives you a lot of confidence to make an opinion, just to speak, because it's very, very hard for me to know that my peers are not comfortable speaking. That's like a right. Everybody needs to be listened and to feel in a great culture, a communication culture. So that's what I try to create and to foster in my teams, and they need to start having confidence in doing that. And we also do something, meditation techniques and breathing techniques, just to download the anxiety and the stress, because there are a lot of studies that shows we use the same neuro connections and systems to feel fear than to feel confident, and we cannot feel both. So we need to clear out the ways, the path to be able to feel confidence, and that can be achieved through meditation, mindfulness, and breathing techniques.
And those negative conversations that we sometimes have in our heads about our performance, how we're projecting, how people are perceiving us, those techniques will be useful there. Are there any other suggestions that you'd have for women to, because, it's quite difficult when you're in the moment to kind of, take stock, get your breathing right and what have you, because you've got to give an answer there and then you're doubting yourself. What kind of thing might you share with anybody listening in such a situation?
I always encourage people to say, if you are not sure, to say, I don't know this right now, but please let me get back to you. I will research, I will investigate, come up with a great practical answer, and we'll get back to you. Don't be afraid to do that, because it doesn't mean that you are not aware of your responsibilities. It doesn't mean that you don't have skills or competence or anything. It just means that this answer is a little bit more complex, and a good answer will require reflection and investigation. So it's better to make a good answer in the beginning, but taking more time, than make a halfway or a wrong answer just because you feel like you have to answer something. So that also requires empowerment, that you ask for the time you need. Do it. It's like something that you need to do, and it's a great answer when you are not sure, and you will get back to your managers or to these people with great assertive and productive responses.
Absolutely. One of the things that I know that you're very cognizant of is the leadership opportunities for women, and how they actually can, I use that term, move through the ranks, which there's so many things wrong with that term anyway. But that's for another session perhaps. Is this something that when you're actually putting together your workshops and what have you, you see as a recurring theme? People are getting to a certain point, and then maybe they're not able to move into those more senior roles.
Yes, it's something that is very recurrent for us in the IT world. For example, in the workforce in general, we have only 27% of female opportunities or female workforce. But in leadership or senior management, the gap is even strongest. We have 17% of female senior leaders or senior managers or CEOs in the tech industry. And actually, this is 32% less than other industries. So IT is even more hard with us, with the female opportunities. So what I always recommend is to have mentors. That's great to build your network and everything, but we also need to address this with senior and upper management, because they need to be able to promote and to create and guarantee the opportunity for the female co-workers. I think it's very important that men start realizing this, and they start also incorporating some changes. For example, early detection of leadership skills in women's female workforce is very important, so you can mentor them and you can nurture them so they can grow. And also having the same opportunities for everybody, this is very important. And women leaders will bring a lot of different strategies, different mindsets, and different skills to the workforce. For example, Gartner has published for 7 years in a row that the first cause of workplace failure in IT in particular is miscommunication and misalignment. Almost 90% of all employees feel like they cannot align, communicate, and this is causing project failures, deadlines being pushed, increase of budget, and decrease of return of investment, of course. And women are strong communicators by nature, and we are great listeners. There are a lot of different studies that shows that, but I always like to recall one from the United States. There were 30,000 people interviewed, and they were only required to put if they think a particular skill is more for women, for men, or equal for both. And communication was like 80% of the interviewed people said that we are better into communication because we can listen. And communication is about speaking and listening, not only speaking. So that's communication itself. And the thing I find about that research also very, very curious was about fairness. Everybody replied that if they have, like 80% of the people replied, 30,000 subjects of study. If they had a female manager, they felt not even working and starting or anything, that they will be fairly treated in the work with more fairness if the manager was a female leader. 80% of the people felt like the work environment will be more fair for even men. So that's important also to remember.
Absolutely. They're very interesting stats. Just in case anyone's wondering, the stats are from Gartner and McKinsey. And
Gartner, McKinsey, and also the European Women in Tech, in Technology. European Women and Technology Center.
We talked about mentoring in quite a few of these women in testing interviews, and I'll just mention anybody listening, there's a lot of them on YouTube, so you can tune into them. Is it just about mentorship? My personal experience is that I didn't just need someone who was supporting me with on the mentoring side of things, but I needed someone to advocate me and to support me within the organization, so that I was spotted, and spotted for the right reasons. Just for some context, people watching, Clara and I were chatting before we started the session about my own career, where, you know, I was asked very nicely if I had a nice skirt and a pair of high heels, and now, you know, you're going to be a project manager for a certain project in a big UK company back in the 80s. So, you know, an interesting experience back then, and I hopefully times have changed. But, you know, going back to somebody to advocate for you, support you, you know, help to highlight you, how important is that still, Clara?
It's still very, very important. Actually, in my last role as a senior manager for a digital transformation, it was a huge project. It lasted 2 years, and I was in charge of the user acceptance testing, and I had to handle and manage the QA resources and the business resources. It was strong teams, like 40 people per country, 16 countries. I was hired by the transformation manager, and he was such a great ally. He hired me because of my skills. I was the only female on a lot of our meetings from upper management, and I wasn't only the only female, I was also the youngest. And whenever I need to speak, it was a common thing to speak over my speak, and also to try to be condescending with what I was saying. And he always promoted me, asked for listening, and also said, we have hired a professional in testing, we need to listen to her. And it was something I can say for myself, but it wasn't listened as when my manager said it. He was such a great inspiration for me, and it was a person opening doors and always sending people to my way when he thinks the questions he was receiving were my area of expertise. He always valued my opinion, and most of the times even followed the recommendations that I did, even though sometimes he wasn't sure that this was the right path, but I was having new strategies for testing. I did like 3 strategies in the one. I coexist risk strategies and management strategies and shift left testing. And he wasn't aware of that, but he decided to trust me. And that was very, very important to me. Having his support in these steer committee meetings was something that I cannot value enough. And I was so happy to be able to work with a person that trusts you, hires you for a reason, and then allows you to do your work and support it. He was always my backup. And that's something that was very important.
And a huge benefit to the organization, because then you were such an active contributor. I was reading something, it was only last week, talking about attrition rates within organizations of women. And often, you know, there's very inclusive hiring processes, maybe in some organizations. But there comes a point where women decide, actually, you know, this isn't for me. And the report was quite interesting because it was talking about, you know, that are they leaving for the personal reasons? Because we always assume it's something to do with, you know, what they're doing in their personal life, whether it's having children or whatever. Work-life balance. But it's just actually that's not the case. And why they were leaving was because of the lack of opportunity, and they weren't seeing that progression. So, you know, we hope there are some managers and people in organizations listening to these sessions. What advice would you give to the organization about making sure that actually they were not losing those women for the wrong reasons, you know? And certainly I think the wrong reason is I'm leaving because there's no opportunity to progress. And I'll caveat that because I know some people will say to me, Debbie, that applies to men and women. Of course it does. But actually the statistics show it applies more to women. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. We have measured the turnover of women in tech in particular. We have a 40% rate of women leaving the IT world because they don't have the same opportunities, and they experience particularly this work bias between male and female co-workers. And 40% is something that also impacts greatly in the IT budget, you know. it impacts a lot in your team if you lose a valid resource for the wrong reasons. It costs money. So, and then it's also the matter not only to close the gap between females and males, but also to having the right person with the right skills in the right role. And a lot of times that right person is a female coworker that doesn't get the same opportunities as men. So we need to start addressing that from upper management to lower levels. It's very, very important that we are able to reach to the proper audience with these topics and these needs that we have in the IT world.
Yeah, I read a comment from someone, again, it's reports was reading last week, and she said we need to go from this phrase we have about diversity, equality and inclusion, and actually bring the I to the fore and talk much more about inclusion, equality and diversity, because the diversity is just a natural, it's what will come. Actually,
with inclusion, we will have the others.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, what I'm hearing from you, Clara, is that inclusion is very, very important, and for organizations recognizing the value that it can bring. And you've very well articulated some of the skills that women particularly have, such as communication, which is fantastic. Looking at advice for any women who are watching this, because I'm watching the time a little bit now, and I know that we've only got a couple more minutes. What would you say to women about being able to seize opportunities, identify and seize opportunities? You know, you mentioned imposter syndrome earlier, and I know in one of the interviews we've done, we've said, you know, if there's a job advert, women will often say, I can't do that, can't do that, can't do that, I won't apply. You know, a chap might say, I might know that, might not, I'm good for that job. So we know that's a difference. What other things might you say to women about grabbing hold of that opportunity that's there and making sure that they go for it?
I will definitely say, if you see something, say something. We have a strong tendency to assume other people perceive the difference and perceive the gap as we do because we are experiencing it. And it's not like that. A lot of people are not aware of it because they don't put their attention on that, because they don't experience this bias in their current life. So it's a mistake to assume that people knows what we are experiencing. And we need to be able to strongly, directly, and kindly communicate it to our managers. And we need to be able to say, I feel I don't have the same opportunity as my co-workers because of this and this and this. And it needs to be a work meeting. It's not something, there is a strong mistake in the world that's saying we cannot mix feelings with work, with with there is something really wrong on that. Go mix everything. You're a whole, you're a complete person, and say something. If you feel something, say something. If you see something, say something. And search and look for support. Sometimes your manager will not be the person you connect the most in work. Search for another manager. Ask for a one-to-one meeting. Can I take a little bit of your time with this? I'm having this. I'm struggling with this. Knock the door of human resources. Knock the door of the recruiters, of the people that actually brought you to the company, and engage with your coworkers. Also ask if they think the same, if they feel the same. If not, advocate for yourself. But communication will make a strong difference in our world field. And I have had two different managers that really inspire me in my IT career. One was the greatest manager I could have. She was so kind. She was actually a kindergarten teacher for 20 years, and then she studied engineering and changed her career. She was so kind, such a great listener, and great. She took me under her wing and teach me a lot of different things and helped me develop my skills. And I was so grateful to have her. And then I had another different manager, and she was such a strong woman. And I think being strong and being powerful is different. Your power is an innate thing that comes from you. And strange is something that for proving something that you have to prove that you have your force. It's not like that. She, for example, once in a meeting, upper management meeting, she break her hand, making a strong point, clapping her hands on the table. I wasn't in that meeting. It was a previous job of her, but when she told us his anecdote, she was so proud of breaking her hand. She was proud of being able to have such a strong energy or something like that. It shouldn't be something that we feel we need to do to be able to be listened by our peers, to be able to obtain respect. We shouldn't have to break our hands. We should embrace our energy as women. That's our particular skills that actually make us shine in the workplace. These abilities will change our work culture and will increase our productivity. So my advice is always advocate for yourself. Always find allies. You have allies. Even if you think you don't, ask, talk, engage. 30 minutes of a coffee talk with a proper person will change your career path. That's actually true, and this can happen. So own your opportunities and own your goals and own your expectations, because if we leave our expectations outside, change will hardly happen.
Clara, I can't think of a better way to finish this interview than with what you've just said. It's so powerful. Thank you so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed speaking with you. And just to let people know, please go to the ISTQB YouTube site and you'll be able to see Clara's interview and interviews with other women. We have a lot of recurring themes and we have a lot of stories which have similarities, but every woman's perspective is unique and different and relevant, and it's really, really useful to hear and to share. So, Clara, thank you so much.
Thank you, Debbie. It was a pleasure to meet you. And for everybody that is listening to our call, my LinkedIn door is always open, and I'm available for any talk that you need or any support, or even to have a one-on-one and get to know each other with any woman in the IT world, in the testing world. We need to support each other. And it's also a pleasure. It's more than an obligation. It's a pleasure to support young women starting their careers and help them to grow.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you. Bye-bye.